Hello, and welcome to the American Marketing Association New York Chapter's content series, The Changing Role of the Chief Marketing Officer. I'm your host today, Jacques Pavleni. I'm a 20-year B2B marketing veteran and a longtime AMA volunteer. Joining me today is Nancy Pearson. She is a longtime veteran of the B2B marketing world as well, where she cut her teeth in marketing leadership roles at IBM, OpenLink Financial, and Ion Investment Group. She recently joined Eka Software Solutions, a global trade, supply chain, and financial management cloud-based platform. And she's had a front row seat to the disruptive influence of digital transformation in many industries, as well as how digital is transforming the art and science of marketing. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Jacques.
So I think a good way to start is just tell us a little bit about your journey to Eka Software. How did you get there? What's been important in your transition as a marketing leader from, say, a big brand like IBM to smaller brands like Eka?
Sure. So you mentioned that I've had a long career at IBM, and I was responsible for managing marketing of large divisions within software group, anywhere in the range of, let's say 4 billion to 10 billion. And also I launched IBM Cloud, and then also had a stint in artificial intelligence. When I decided to leave, I wanted to take what I learned in having to transform marketing and also transform the business to address market changes across multiple divisions. I wanted to take that experience that I garnered and really apply it in a different space. So the space that I was specifically looking at was fintech and more private equity backed businesses who tend to be, smaller in revenue size. So I started by working for OpenLink in the commodity management space. And what they really wanted to do is transform their brand, understand really the core of the business as it had grown, and really then modify their brand, their mission, their vision, product promise associated with that. They were also getting into the cloud space. So I found that my experience at IBM transferred really well to these environments because I had the experience of doing it before, but now I'm doing it in a different environment.
What do you think are those factors that are going to accelerate these digital transformations in industries as varied as what you're working in now, but also more importantly, how those transformations are going to actually transform the role of the CMO itself?
Sure. Well, I think that we've all just experienced with COVID-19 something that is really pushing and that has literally transformed the way people are thinking about their traditional businesses and technology that they have. And they don't really have a choice anymore. So what I'm seeing is a significant acceleration for digital transformation. And so that's part of also too, what I've done with Eka is really modify the narrative, change the narrative, capitalize on what's happening in the market right now. And even from a marketing perspective has significantly had to change. A pre-approved marketing plan for this year had to be completely revamped to be 100% digital. So I think I'm not the only one experiencing that challenge. I think all of us are experiencing those changes on marketing. So we've got two things converging at one time. If you weren't a leader in the market and being those first companies to understand digitization, you're now being forced to do it in an environment that's fundamentally different from the way you worked only 4 or 5 months ago. So things like remote access, remote install, obviously things like Zoom, what we're doing here, all of them are front and center in now a new way of working on top of a transformation that's required, and for people to really accelerate their ability to capitalize on that and really move fast.
And how do you think it's been impacting your role as a CMO? What are you seeing differently in the way that you have to manage your team, your budget, your strategy? Obviously, COVID is having this accelerating effect. Is that the only thing that's causing this change, or are there other underlying factors that are changing what you are seeing as the fundamental needs and roles of a CMO today?
So there are multiple things. I think the CMO role, even in the last couple of years, has dramatically changed. So first of all, joining, whether it was OpenLink, Ion, or Eka, what you find is they're basically, from a marketing perspective, heavily reliant on face-to-face events and email, right? And we know that that's changed over the last number of years, and all of the digital capabilities have become more prevalent in people's, their marketing plans. So when I started, I knew I had to address that. I knew I needed to infuse new, skills, new understanding of the more modern marketing tools. And so in all cases, I've had to put in place, whether it's a new tech stack or educate the team on what digital really is and what it means and how it really changes the skills that you have. So there's that change occurring, right? And then there's digital transformation on the businesses that we serve. And then in our case here, the third one being COVID, which is any market disruption. The commodity space and trading and risk space has had a number of really major disruptions, everything from a financial crisis, to where we are today with COVID. And it affects businesses differently depending upon, exactly which segments they focus on, trading and risk versus supply chain. We're seeing a lot of change in the supply chain arena right now. COVID put, a really big spotlight on that when digital, when supply chains were not digital. And then on the other side, there are industries that, are being forced, like travel and some of the ones that are hit hard by this, to really reinvent and rethink engagement.
I'd be curious to hear, obviously your experience at ECA in particular brings you very close to the supply chain challenges and disruptions that we've been facing from COVID. But I'd be curious to hear about, how do you think that's actually changing the role of the chief marketing officer?
Yeah.
I've seen so many examples of where companies in many different industries weren't really thinking about their supply chain as a competitive differentiator. And then Amazon, but look what's happening now. Amazon and others, big tech, who have strong locks on their supply chains. Apple, for example, whose brand is now rethinking its entire chip supply chain
They have to.
as part of their brand promise. Isn't that, how do you see that supply chain now becoming a big factor in your strategies as a CMO?
Well, I mean, it certainly is a major factor for me as Chief Marketing Officer of ECA, because that's the area that we serve. So both, from a trading and risk perspective across people's, business, as well as now from a supply chain perspective, a lot of our clients, are the large enterprise players in food, production and delivery, et cetera. So, from working with these clients directly as a chief marketing officer, now being able to really talk about our platform and capability in that respect has changed the content development of my team. So number one, we're doing a lot of content changes right now. And then number two, we're moving the plan to 100% digital and needing to rely on things that, we've had 43% of our leads being developed through events. So all of this has put pressure on my team to replan. So the middle of March, when we had an approved budget and we had an approved marketing plan, I now have to replan, and now I'm delivering a revised plan that's 100% digital based on different, obviously parts of the marketing mix, and also shift expense.
Yeah. Big shift from face-to-face events, which, like you said earlier, I've seen statistics of anywhere, for many B2B companies, up to 40% of their pipeline comes from physical face-to-face events. So.
Right, mine was 43, right, 37 to 43%. So now I have to think about, how am I making that pipeline? And you've probably also noticed that now there's a plethora of webinars through LinkedIn and other mechanisms. Why? Because those are really the only outlets left for that traditional engagement vehicle to be delivered through a digital virtual platform. So now, at first, the first mover's advantage to putting those webinars out did very well. In fact, we did a webinar in April that actually we were able to get over 1,000 people registered.
Wow.
Numbers that were unheard of not too long ago. But now also now at the end of June, we're starting to see a flood of them and there's more competition. So how do you now attract people, to some of these, what virtually face to face, as we call it, mechanisms for you to get in front of people and explain to them your unique value. And so that is a challenge. And I think it is changing the CMO's role. We still are the steward of the brand. We are the person that has to make sure we have the right skills and capabilities in place and the right marketing mix in our plan. But execution right now has become quite different. And we still only have the same vehicles to work with outside of face-to-face events and third-party events.
What do you see as some of the permanent changes after we make it through this? What are some of the things that, like the top of mind things that you think will be permanently, fundamentally different about the role of the CMO? And what do you think is going to stay the same? What do you think is going to go back to, some basics some fundamentals that will remain the same?
I think that some of the things that won't change are, I definitely, believe that having the branding skills and understanding what that means for any business, any company is going to continue to be, critically important. And that's not something that's easy to obtain. So you need to have experience at that. And I can see it bringing a lot of value to the businesses that I'm involved in and have been for the last few years. I think that, understanding how to change and turn on a dime, how to replan and be really thinking about that all the time in terms of optimizing your plan. So whether it's performance on campaigns, whether it's new vehicles of delivery and execution, I think that now more than ever, all of us are experiencing much more rapid change. You need to operate much more quickly. You can't rely on having a plan in place and then just executing the plan. So as an example, I think I've told you this before, when COVID, I told my plan was formed for February and approved. That was our year end. And then COVID hit. So literally over a weekend, the development team built a COVID-19 risk monitoring app. And
Over a single weekend?
Over a weekend, in
Wow.
7 days, we had to have it out in market. So what did that mean? That meant the whole team really needed to focus on this, and we had to build a mini plan and execute that mini plan in less than 10 days. And we were able to do it because of, the digital capabilities that we had put in place as part of our plan for this year. Right? So that we just turned them, but it took all hands on deck. It took us really focusing on this. We had a free 30-day, 90-day offer. And so we were able to test out a very different way of doing marketing very, very quickly. So those are the things that I think we're going to be seeing more of. And some of the things that are just really good marketing practices in terms of elevating talent and being able to teach people along the way. And I think the thing that I also learned through this crisis period is, innovation, it's really important. So I'll give you an example. So we had planned the brand revamp and we were marching down a path when COVID hit. We got a little distracted by that app that we had to launch and focus on that, but still had to deliver on a brand new website by, literally this month. And we're working on multiple fronts here in changing our marketing plan, working on this big branding project and website revamp. And then we get to the point where, what are we going to do about launching this? And, we've had a number of disruptions with COVID. What are we going to do about launching it? And we just kept coming back to the same aspects of launch. Okay, well, we're going to do an ad buy. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Obviously, the website. And then I came up with an idea. I said, look, since really, I think COVID and also the dramatic changes that we've gone through have brought back this whole idea of authenticity. And we've been talking about authenticity and personalization in marketing for a while, but I got this idea that we should then have our employees launch this new brand because it really is about the vision that was put out, years ago as it was related to one platform, one data model, one source of data, one, security model. that we reinvented the brand. And so I said, 3 days before we do the big advertising push, let's have the employees launch our brand. And so what we did was we created a whole bunch of social tiles around the power of one. And I said, everyone's going to launch this brand, and we're simultaneously, all 400 plus employees are going to post their power. So as a chief marketing officer, my power was to educate the marketing team, and educate and empower the marketing team to be, the best that they can be. I don't remember the exact post, and that's my power. My power is enabling their success and our success as a company. Everyone, whether somebody was in development, I'm the power in every line of code. For, sales, I'm the power in implementing, client success. And we got a multiplication effect out in the market, all doing this simultaneously in a time period on the date of pre-launch that actually introduced the brand through every one of our employees and their unique power. And it's ideas like that are really going to make the difference today in really capturing people's minds and hearts through all these digital and virtual environments. And I would just say that came as an idea that wasn't pre-planned. It wasn't, something that we had done before. And in fact, in some markets, LinkedIn reached out to us and said, this is really unique, and we want to actually do a case study on it. So I think you'll see more and more people leveraging digital and social media in unique ways. And I just think I encourage that. I think it's something that will make people stand out.
I love how you took an old idea of a social media takeover or a media takeover and really put an employee first brand spin on that to bring that authenticity to life, to bring individual stories to life. We're storytellers. What a great way to tell that story. I love that story.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And you know what was most important about it is it got the employee base excited, and they're all working from home. So what I struggled with is normally we do balloons, cupcakes in the office, signage everywhere. And then they could feel the moment of this, the milestone, this moment of a rebirth. But we didn't have those vehicles. We didn't have anybody in the office. So it was really, I think, leveraging just an opportunity at this particular time.
Fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that. We're getting close to our time, so I wanted to close out with something a little more lighthearted. I suppose, like you, many of us have been listening to a lot of podcasts lately. I've seen numbers for podcasts go up, despite the fact that we're not commuting in cars. We obviously have a lot more time now to listen to podcasts. I walk my dog with podcasts. And one of the podcasts that I've been listening to a lot recently is Tim Ferriss's podcast around leadership and growth. One of his most recent episodes, he had some really interesting questions that he likes to ask his guests. So I'm going to shamelessly steal one of those questions
Okay.
and end today's interview on a little levity. So the question is, what is a book that you're giving out a lot as a gift?
One that I've given out multiple times, and by the way, it affected me very positively. It kind of connected a lot of things that I've learned over the years that I didn't know how they were important or really where they fit. It's called the Motivation Manifesto. It's a small book, and it's not a big, like reams and reams, not like 2 inches thick, but it's really about what makes the difference to people that find their way through life and find the opportunity in life, and are more successful, right, in accomplishing the things that matter to them. And it talks a lot about experiences, but also what comes from within. And I think it's very important. I give it to, especially, I like to give it to people just starting out in their careers, because they're trying to figure it out. And a lot of the pieces don't make sense, and a lot of things have changed today. But it also mattered to me, and I had read this, not too long ago, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I was well down my way, obviously, in a career. But for me, it really helped me to understand how do you stand out, what makes a difference in people, and in their motivation. It's a lot about what motivates the people against 2 different paths in life. Successful one, and one that might be a little frustrating for people. So I loved it, and I would encourage people to look it up. And I don't have the author right in front of me, but I wish I had a copy of it. I would show you, but definitely look it up. It's called the Motivation Manifesto.
That's great. Well, I'll try to get it into the show notes so people can see a link to where they can see it, say on Amazon Books or online.
Yeah, that
Uh,
would be great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for the interview today. Again, our guest today is Nancy Pearson from Eka Software. The Changing Role of the CMO series is brought to you by the American Marketing Association New York chapter and our partners Cisco, Microsoft, Ogilvy, and Lettershop. You can learn more about today's guest, our partners, the AMA New York, and the book we mentioned in the show notes. The AMA New York chapter is all about inspiring, supporting, and celebrating brilliant marketers working in the heart of the world's most influential business city. We hope you'll tune into other episodes of this series or visit amanewyork.org to learn more about our programs. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and shine bright.